Mike had an interesting spring because he tried losing weight to test better, and he had a high ankle sprain, and he's just kind of figuring out, like, I'm a big person. I'm a defensive end, and so as of today he was 295, and yeah. So we got a cool video this morning. And he's sitting on the scale because we're talking about it. So we know he's a big guy. He's long. He plays hard.
Hey everybody, welcome in. That was John Schneider, the Seattle Seahawks general manager, and thanks to the Seahawks for the audio there, talking about Mike Morris, who was drafted out there to the Great Northwest, along with, 7 other Wolverines on the weekend, something we'll be talking about today on a Michigan Monday, a Michigan May the 1st, the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Yeah, the draft over the weekend, we'll look at how Michigan did. I'll tell you just what it meant for the Wolverines overall. We'll look at the spring trip that Michigan is currently out on to tell you how things are going there from what I have seen. Get a recruiting update. We'll pick up where we left off on Friday, and Michigan State, they had a bad weekend. As good as Michigan's weekend was, the Spartans went the other direction. They lost a pair. Actually, they lost more than that. It looks like they lost 3 now. Hard to keep up. We'll get to the attrition up in East Lansing. We'll start with the 9 players that got drafted for Michigan. I just want to say, it was really this weekend here, it's a celebration weekend. You see the graduates at Michigan walking around in their gowns. I saw a few pictures of Blake Corum, with his hat, and that was cool. Michigan players, so many of them going on to the NFL, and it's overall Michigan looked great this weekend. When you're Michigan, they're just in the top of everything right now when it comes to football. Georgia and Alabama had more players drafted, but there was Michigan at number 3. And we know the last 2 years, Michigan's been top 4 on the field where it counts. They've been there in the college football playoffs, and they look great. I mean, they're going to be a top 4 team heading into the season, preseason, or whatever it's worth. It's worth a little bit, it's off season. People are like, well, who's going to be good? Michigan. They're going to be pretty good. They're going to be, ranked in the top 5. Hell, maybe they'll be number 2 in the country. And we'll see. But recruiting, the team rankings, they've moved to number 1. Transfer portal, so they're up there. They're doing good. And this weekend, really, it's a celebration weekend. Just like if you were graduating from college, these players, to see all these Michigan players walking across the stage or wherever they were at home, picking up the phone and finding out what destination they're going to go to in the NFL. It was pretty cool. Where all these guys went, but we'll just go through it a little bit. I can give you some impressions, maybe, on some things. And as always, you have a chance if there's something that stood out to you with the Michigan players or the NFL draft over the weekend. You can go ahead and get in with the feedback. I'll tell you anything that kind of struck me as we went through it. Mazi Smith, we knew on Thursday night, he went to Dallas. And congratulations to Mazi going down there to the Big D. I think a lot of people, if we were trying to pick how they were going to come off the board, the Maize and Blue players, I don't know how many people would have had Luke Schoonmaker being the next player and also going to Big D, but nice landing spot there for Luke as he'll make a nice nice security blanket for Dak Prescott being in there, and he'll have all the chance in the world to get out there and play in your 2nd round pick. So Luke Schoonmaker going to Dallas. DJ Turner, not going to be too far, going down to Ohio. And as Rich Eisen pointed out on the NFL Network, Turner knows how to win in Ohio. No doubt about that, as Michigan won there last year, and we know they've won 2 in a row. But when you run 4.26, how many times were these guys talking about the speed and Turner running a 4.26? He's going to be right in there. So going in the second round, I would say that this was the surprise. I was going to say the entire draft. Certainly, it's the surprise for Michigan that you would have Jake Moody. Not that he got drafted. I think a lot of people expected Jake Moody to get drafted, but you just don't have kickers. There's been a few here and there. It's been a few years, and sometimes, they get drafted this high, but not very often. Certainly not from, people that like the metrics in football. They would say you would never draft a kicker in a million years in the top 3 rounds. But San Francisco, good organization, and they said, to hell with that. We're going to go with Moody, and they picked him in round 3 as one of the shockers of the draft. Mike Morris, you heard John Schneider talking about the defensive end in Mr. Morris. I don't know if he'll continue to do commercials in the area. He should, but he'll be fine out there in Seattle, and he'll have his teammate there. I thought this was a little bit of a surprise, seeing some of the centers that went with Oluwatimi falling to the 5th round, but he's in a good spot, and he'll be there with Morris. Good organization with the Seahawks, and the Seahawks look pretty good. Seahawks look like they were going into the tank, and then Geno Smith brought up stability from the quarterback position, and now with the draft and the things that they've done, the Seahawks are on the rise. They look like a playoff team coming up next year with what they did over the weekend. Although Timmy could be part of that. I'm a little bit surprised to see Brad Robbins drafted, but the punter from Michigan also, he'll join up with DJ Turner in Cincinnati. So good for him, though. Like Robbins, he's already making him laugh with some of his comments and some of his interviews already. But you knew that Robbins is a pretty funny guy. And then you're looking for tackle help. Ryan Hayes going to the Dolphins. You're always looking for some tackle help. So, he'll get a good chance there. I'm glad Ronnie Bell can say, hey, being able to pick your spot maybe in the 7th round, but there's also just getting drafted is pretty nice. And then if you get drafted in a good situation with a good franchise, and that's all of the things when you look at San Francisco. So Ronnie Bell, that was a good day, and that's a good spot for Ronnie Bell when you look at who they've got, when you look at the personnel that the 49ers are working with and where they could be headed. All good stuff there for Michigan and the draft. And if you're a Michigan football fan, and there's some people that don't care at all about the NFL, and I understand that. I'm not here to sell you on, well, I really like the NFL, whatever, you don't have to like it. But for Michigan, you're constantly, when they say, a fluid situation and, how does Michigan look? Michigan looked great over the weekend. Those players, the interviews, what they were saying, what the coaches, what the GMs, what all the people, the reporters, whatever the media saying about the guys that they were getting, it was nothing but positivity for the Maize and Blue. And the Michigan football program came off great. The players came off great. It was a tremendous weekend all the way through there for U of M with all of that happened. So from that standpoint, and you're a Michigan fan, you're saying, well, pros, congratulations, but what's it mean for Michigan? It means that the spotlight was on the U of M football program, and it continues to be on it, and it looked pretty good. Now they had a couple other guys that ended up catching on to different parts. I'll tell you about those in a moment, but we always take your feedback to see what everybody's talking about. Richard's talking about Michigan number 1, Ohio State number 2 in recruiting. Scott doesn't like I thought he was talking about Mondays. Now he's talking about Moody. There's nothing typical about Moody. Yeah, I'm with you there on Moody. Jake Moody, a great one for sure. Michigan, the new NFL kicking powerhouse. Yeah, to have a kicker taking that early. That looks good for the Michigan football program. And, Michigan picked up a kicker over the weekend. I don't know if I was going to get to that today or tomorrow. I'm actually not 100% sure, but Michigan did in the transfer portal pick up an experienced kicker. So if that's something that you were worried about, and some people are always worried about everything, but they could be worried about kicking next year. I wouldn't say that that's a miscast worry or anything. You might feel a little better about it as Michigan went into the transfer portal. Andre seeing Michigan guys to the Bengals makes me want to get sick. I think Andres is a Browns fan. Yeah, you're going to have to get used to it. The Bengals are one of the best teams right now. And I was going to say organizations, which I don't know if they're a great organization. What I do know is they've got Joe Burrow and they've got Jamar Chase. You got those two guys, you're looking really good because those two guys are as premium and as great of NFL players as you can get. So the Bengals aren't going anywhere, Andres, as long as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are there. So I know that's got to be tough if you are a Browns fan. Being a Browns fan. We will get to Dre. I knew this was going to happen. What about what's going on with Michigan State? Yeah, I'll address that coming up here. I know people they'll like that as much as me going over the Michigan players and where they headed and recruiting or anything else. The demise of the Michigan State football program is as exciting to people as anything else. I understand that. Give it up to Jymon Green as a free agent headed to the New York Giants. And then Joel Honigford, who pancaked one of the best defensive players in college football last year, the Michigan-Ohio State game, with a big decleater. Honigford headed to Arizona. Good luck to these guys. Jymon Green, one of my favorites as a Michigan football player. I loved watching and listening to him be interviewed. Good luck in New York to Jymon. All right. So the football team is on their spring trip. They left on Friday. I saw them getting on the plane. I snapped a few of or I guess copied some of the pictures, screenshotted and fit them in here so you could take a look at some of the photos. I saw this morning that they are in the nation's capital. So currently the football team is in D.C. I saw them making the rounds. I saw the Capitol. They were going to look at a couple museums. So they're in D.C. today. Friday, I believe that they were in New York City. I've got two pictures. Here is, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. This is Leon Franklin, a picture of Franklin taking a picture of Manhattan as they go over to where the Statue of Liberty is off the back of one of those boats that you always see there in New York. And there's Colston Loveland, who I think is there in the shadows of the Statue of Liberty. And you can see Manhattan behind him there. So great trip there. Think about all these places. Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't know. Cleveland, I could have skipped that. Gettysburg, someplace I always wanted to go. DC, I've never been. New York City's great. Great place to visit. We'll say a great place to live, great place to visit. Maybe the same thing with DC and everything else. And again, Cleveland, maybe there's something recruiting going on there. I don't know. Maybe they have to refuel. I didn't exactly get why, but probably Ohio, the state of Ohio, recruiting. I have some friends and even some former Michigan football players who listen, who I take a shot at Cleveland. I'm probably going to be getting a text here, but I would say that it's probably for recruiting purposes when it comes down to the spring trip. But, that's another thing that when it started out, I wondered, I thought, okay, this is going to be, something Harbaugh is doing to attract attention to Michigan, positive attention. Will it work in recruiting? And, when Michigan wasn't doing well on the field in the first couple of years, people were like, non-Michigan fans were looking at it and like rolling their eyes and saying, well, this was a bust. But It has not been. This has been something, and I don't even know what the intended purpose is. I get, going out and, you know, you're not just learning on the football field, but, you're taking Michigan elsewhere. Who knows, who will see the maize and blue. It was all of that. But what it's done for the players to be able to go around. When you're young and you travel, you always think, oh, I'm going to travel everywhere in the world, all the way through. And then you stay in one place for a long time. You look back and you can say, yeah, I've been all these different places. So these guys are getting a great experience. You learn a lot being out. It's not necessarily different cultures, but uh, it's different, from if let's just say you're from the state of Michigan, going to all these different places. Great experience is what I'm trying to say. But it's great for sponsors of Michigan, also people that donate money to Michigan donors and all of that, being able to hang out with the players in a different setting and the coaches and all of that. I don't see any negatives to it. In fact, I just see nothing but positives when it comes down to that. All right, let's look through here. We're going to get to that. Andres is unsubscribing because I said some nice things about the Bengals. Yeah, sorry about that. Richard saying it's nice to visit Canton. Everyone should go. Richard, I'm right with you on that. Pro Football Hall of Fame. I want to go to that. I had planned, it was the double enshrinement. Was it just this past? Let me think. I think it was this past August. So I don't know. So before the pandemic, it was on my bucket list. I'm saying, hey, if there's going to be a time where some Michigan players are going to be there in Canton, that's when you're going to want to write it down. So then Steve Hutchinson is going, Michigan guard is going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That was going to be good enough. And then Charles Woodson, you had both of them. And I had that planned. I was going to go broad. I was going to do it all. And then the pandemic. And then it was a little hot in both ways last August. And it just didn't happen. I was that close to making it happen. And it didn't work. So I don't know when the next time, if it could match Woodson and Hutchinson, that would have been awesome to be there this last time around. But there'll be another time. No time. DC only, no Mars trip this spring. What? Bonding experience. Scott giving us an I told you so. I told you. Mozzie was a first rounder, Scott says. 8 players picked in the draft is pretty good, but we had too many late round type picks. So he liked the draft, but then didn't like that there were too many late round picks. Yeah, don't get too caught up into that kind of stuff, Scott. Like, yeah, you know what? You'd like all of them to be first round picks. Would it be great if they set some kind of record like the Georgia Bulldogs did, 2 years ago when they put all those guys in the first round? Sure, you'd like everybody to be a first round pick. You'd like everybody to go in the first 2 days, but having nothing to sneeze at, having 8 guys go, and when there's only 2 schools and it's Bama and it's Georgia, having more guys getting drafted. You tried to, I don't know, dampen people's spirits a little bit on it, finding somewhere. I just look at it, and maybe it's just me sitting back here. I don't try to be Pollyanna or any of this. I just try to take a look at it. But the way the football program has it going right now, I hear people, complain a little bit about, this position in recruiting, or they had a lot of players drafted, but, they could have had a couple more second or third rounders. Hey, that's great. That's fine for you. I just don't really see it like that. I thought it was a great weekend all over for Michigan and the spotlight on them. I think they're doing fabulous. But yeah, hey, if everybody's just sitting around singing the praises of Michigan and talking about how great things are, that's why we do have the feedback. Or people like Scott who can, jump in and say a few things. Here's another Scott. Let's face it, Ohio recruiting is crucial for Michigan. That is hammering home why Michigan would be stopping on their spring trip into Cleveland. Good job, Scott. You're right about that. I don't understand what that is about. Richard wanted to see the Bronco Nagurski statue. Yeah, Bronco gets slighted a little bit when you talk about the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Who is it? It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady should be unanimous number one. Joe Montana should be unanimous number two. But if you're going back in the history of pro football, when you look at the 10-year window that Nagurski had and the championships that he won, if you're including all of professional football, Nagurski should be included somewhere in the top five, just like Johnny Unitas, but it's for a different generation. I mean, I never saw certainly Bronco Nagurski or Johnny Unitas play. So those guys don't get talked about as the greatest of all time. They get talked about as, way back in the day. Great. But when I do hear people rank their top five quarterbacks and I hear people say Brady, Montana, Nagurski, Johnny Unitas, Peyton Manning, something like that, I'm like, okay, I don't mind that. Scott says we are now seriously watering down our Hall of Fames. Yeah, I don't know where you've been, Scott. I think that depending on what Hall of Fame that you're talking about, I mean, like I could deal an hour talking about Hall of Fame and being inducted or whatever else. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Gary drives by Canton every summer this year. This year, he's stopping to see the Hall of Fame. Sounds like a great idea. Gary, like I said, I've thought about it a lot. I haven't been there. I was ready to do it, but that damn pandemic screwed it up. I had the best laid plans down there, just like I was going to go to see Michigan in Seattle to take on Washington. That got scrapped. And then my trip to the Hall of Fame also got scrapped. That sucks. Let's see. Mark is saying no Maris Hall of Fame, 61, with the greatest accomplishment against adversity of the commissioner yet in the surrounding 50 years. Plus, he had 2 MVPs. If you're talking about Roger Maris, that he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, yeah, 61 was a great accomplishment, and he was an excellent player, but nobody that follows baseball really close thinks that Roger Maris should be in the Hall of Fame, Mark. So I think, is that what you're I don't know. It seems like that's the point that you're trying to make. I don't think that Roger Maris should be in the Hall of Fame. Marvin is a huge Michigan man, but we would not be the program we are today without the Buckeye players. LOL. Yeah, that's right. Without being able to recruit the state of Ohio, there's no argument there. Not getting them all from the state of Michigan. Scott's happy to see the best field goal kicker in the draft going round 3. He's originally from Northville, and so is Moody. That's right. I remember when he was a preferred walk-on coming in. I remember when they put Moody in there over the number 1 kicker of them all, the one that Jim Harbaugh went out there and stayed overnight, and you're thinking, why would they be putting, Jake Moody in there instead of this guy? Harbaugh knew what he was doing in that spot. This says, wasn't it 9? Well, let me see if I can count them all up. Did I miss it? Go ahead and count them all up. Is that 9 on your screen right there? Sometimes when people throw you the curveball and ask you a question, it was 9. Did I say 8? If I said 8, I was mistaken. It was 9 players. So if I said 8, I was wrong on that. Sorry, OT. Michigan's going to have a great time on the East Coast. Yeah, I bet. Unlike Mantle, Maris couldn't handle the party. I'm not sure Mantle could handle the party either, Richard. I mean, he did it and he tried, but I think that I think the hard drinking hurt Mantle in a lot of ways. Drinking about some of the years that it robbed of him. I know it was his knee, but I think it's hard to say what he could have done if he would have not had the problems that he had with drinking. Don says he's heard something about this trip involving name, image, and likeness type things. Well, Don, even before there was NLI, there was a lot of people that were like, "Oh, what the hell? How's Michigan doing this? I mean, how does this fit in?" Where and then people say, "Hey, it's just donations from alum or whoever, just giving the money. This is part." And other schools are like, "This is BS." And Michigan was able to, find a way to work around. And now that there's name, image, and likeness, yeah. I mean, these guys, I know they were getting their food and everything before that was paid for, and it was however they did it under the umbrella of whoever was paying for it or the legalities where it wasn't uh, benefits from boosters I'm talking about before, name, image, and likeness. Now I would think that, yeah, these guys send them to a five-star restaurant, stuff their pockets full of money, whatever they're doing. I mean, they can do it all now. So yeah, I would think, Don, that is all good, and that could also be something in addition. I know this, like, and there's probably a lot more things, but just some of the outfits that the guys are wearing. I saw some of the sweats, and they've got unique little spring trip stuff there. I was like, I want some of that stuff. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be doing and getting a lot of stuff. Marvin wants to know if we'll have any skill players drafted in the first round of the draft next year. Well, I don't know. The Lions aren't picking, so they probably won't be picking any first round draft picks. But maybe Corum. Is there a chance that Corum or the one armed bandit can be picked in the first round? As great as these guys are, like Blake Corum, is he better than Jahmyr Gibbs that was just picked by the Lions in the first round at number 12? He was a better college football running back than Bijan Robinson, and is more accomplished than Gibbs. Now, Gibbs, but Gibbs runs a sub 4.3. Okay, yeah. I think Donovan Edwards is a better running back than Gibbs. So, maybe both running backs will be picked in the first round. Marvin, when it comes down to that, should Michigan go after Coleman? Keon Coleman? Andres is saying, I can't see him wanting to be in that locker room. All right, let's get to that coming up. A lot of people want to know about Michigan State. You want to know about State, what's going on with Michigan and recruiting. As always, I tell you, I would love to see you on the posting board. Somebody say, hey, I watched the show and contribute, and now I'm here on the Maize and Blue Review because you tell me go on there and we can talk Michigan all day and all night. Call me out when you sign up on the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I'll be waiting for you, just like all the other Michigan fans that will be there on Friday. We were expecting Michigan to get a commitment, and they ended up getting a commitment. Jake Guarnera from Ponte Vedra in Florida. He is headed to Michigan, and as you know here, look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offensive linemen, a real blue wall for the future with Roebuck, Hamilton, Sprague, Frazier, and Guarnera. How about it here for U of M? Nothing but good news, I would think, there. Although on Friday there was, like maybe Michigan's taking too many offensive linemen. Okay. When it comes down to the rankings, Michigan is the number 1 team in Rivals team rankings right now for next year, and they're up to 15 commitments. So everything is going great there. Where things are not going great are up in East Lansing. The Spartans over the weekend, when Michigan is celebrating their players and The worst thing that you could say is, yeah, it'd be nice if some of those fifth rounders were third rounders. Michigan State had their starting quarterback hit the transfer portal, 2-year starter who, coming out of spring, by all indications, for those that watched the spring game, he was the top dog, the incumbent. Thorne hits the transfer portal, so MSU's left with Noah Kim or the redshirt freshman Caton Hauser, and a lot of State fans are like, Hauser's great. Well, hey, be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get the great one. Who he's going to throw the ball to, who knows? He's not going to have their top offensive weapon, Keon Coleman, who shocked even the most ardent Michigan State fan. And he said, I'm out of here. Why would I want to be on a sinking ship where I can go somewhere else? He hit the transfer portal, as did one of their top defensive players in Charles Brantley. These are 3 gigantic hits that Mel Tucker's team takes. And the question about, should Michigan go after Keon Coleman? Keon Coleman's an outstanding wide receiver. I would guess no, that they're not going to. It's just, I know that the hockey team's got a player that played at Ohio State. He's coming up to Michigan, which is a little bit weird, but I don't know. Coleman, good luck to him. He is an outstanding player, but that doesn't seem right. It's not like a recruiting situation. I mean, he went to East Lansing. I would just be like, let him go somewhere else. I don't think Michigan should go after Coleman. I don't think that's going to be the situation. So, no, I would say. Andre says he would like Keon Coleman at Michigan, but he doesn't see him being in the locker room. Can we get a top flight wide receiver? The answer to that question is maybe. And they're after Amarian Stewart, who I think Michigan leads for. He's a wide receiver out of Illinois. He's a 4-star. So I don't know. That's a top flight wide receiver to me. Do you want a 5-star and one of the best wide receivers? I'm not sure they've got one of those that are sitting out there, but there's another. When you have a quarterback like Jaden Davis, who is one of the top QB prospects, Davis is out there, and he's contacting. He's got the 2 guys on his own team in Ship and Goodwin. I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys end up, following Davis to Michigan. And then I think Stewart. So there are 3. But so, I mean, like, you can only take so many wide receivers. So Goodwin's a 3-star, Ship's a 4-star, Stewart's a 4-star. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Marvin. Richard talking about Mel Tucker. He's not as personable as Harbaugh with these younger guys. He's asking the question, what happens is with the transfer portal right now, it's so easy for guys to be like, I'm out. Peace. And you go to a place, if you're any good, and you look and the team doesn't go to a bowl game, and they're sitting out there, and you get spiraling one way or the other. Like, look at where Michigan's at right now. It's really hard to do what Michigan's doing. Winning the Big Ten, beating Ohio State, going to the college football playoff. Now they figured out the transfer portal. Now they've got NIL. Look at they hit a grand slam and being able to retain the players that they did last year. It looks like things are going well for them. I said, thanks. We'll see if they all end up signing, but getting a 5-star with Davis, that was huge. And Michigan is spiraling one way. It's tough to get there and be on and stay there. And, they're not exactly on top, but they're headed that way. Meanwhile, when you're headed the other direction, it is really hard to turn that thing around. And, Tucker had his good season, but, it was, it's hard to sustain it. And now, guys, and I don't know about him. I don't know if it's the coach and his personality. I think his personality seems fine to me, but it's just the overall team. I don't know. It's probably not a fun thing, or probably not even something that you would want to do. But let's do it for a second. Let's say Michigan only won 5 games last year. Guys would be in the transfer portal left and right. Coaches would be leaving. Everybody would say, let's fire the coach. Let's move on. Let's look across the country. I don't know if Michigan State fans could do that because they're stuck right now. They know they're stuck, obviously, this year, probably next year even. So there's no way to get out of the contract. And like the thing that I hear State fans say all the time is, well, just have Ishbia write a check, have him write a $95 million check and then have him write another $95 million check to bring somebody else in. All right. So throwing money, they threw money at the situation. They had to, and they got burned. And so now they're sitting there and this thing is headed in the wrong direction. It's tough. It is tough. College football, you get the brand, you get your team, you get your conference, and then it's about the coach. And Michigan's got that coach right now. We saw the previous 2 how tough it could be with Rich Rod and with Brady Hoke. One wasn't a good fit, and one was in over his head. And now look at Harbaugh. He's he's got this where he wanted it coming in. It took a little bit longer, but with Michigan State, they had to do what they did, and now they're stuck. What else can I say? What else can anybody say about them? Will Sparty get 5 wins? Remember, I did my predictions, was it last week? And I think as I went through it, I think I only had them for 4 wins. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that they'll get 5 wins because I believe I picked them at 4. I'd have to go back and look from a couple days ago, but that's what I remembered. I don't think they're going to have a very good year. Yeah, the culture, when you're winning, you got a good culture. When you're losing, you don't. And it's very tough to, have a positive culture. I mean, what can you say? It does take time. It takes a lot, the culture, just name. There's so much to go. Andres, it's tough to build a winning culture. I'm with you on that. It's like when you don't create it, I'm sure they did try to. It just hasn't worked. Todd is amazed that Michigan is number 1 in recruits for 24. It's great to see. Yes, it is. It is great. It is great to see. Marvin would have left Michigan State. Yeah, if you're any good, the part is like, and this is one of those things, if you're just coming in for the money, and I don't know, you're coming in for playing time, you're jumping on with Tucker, and you're coming in, you're expecting to, why do guys go to school? They go to the NFL, playing time to win. And now that you include NIL, some are just coming in for money. I don't know. And so when you get in there and you're looking around, you're like, wait a second, I'm out. That's the only thing I can say. Again, you get in there and things aren't going well. Why would you stick around? Unless you're just like, I love the university so much. I came here. I'm no. What we've seen from coaches, if they get a chance to leave, they're out to improve themselves. So as a player, if you go in somewhere and you think anything for playing time, money, whatever, you're going to be out. State just doesn't have a real lot. They don't have a lot to offer. They have some playing time to offer right now. So maybe, they'll get a bunch coming out and, they'll have a bunch coming in. Tucker did a pretty good job that pandemic year bringing guys in. He couldn't even, getting them out there. I actually think he's that sounds like a backhanded compliment when I was going to say I actually think he's a pretty good coach. He is a good coach. He was able to put those guys together and I know they didn't light it up in the pandemic season. They beat Michigan, so I was impressed by them being able to do that. Yeah, Marvin, it's tough looking at the Ohio State wide receivers. Wingo at an official visit, he's a 5-star. Yeah, well, they'll have some guys in, and so if they get some guys in, they'll, they can have a chance to get him. Yeah, this is. I think this is the mantra because you have to have one. I've noticed it over the last 2 weeks that Michigan fans, yeah, they're happy that they're doing good. They like the upcoming prospects. Harbaugh's doing wonderful. Everything's going good. We want better wide receivers. That's what they say. And what I told them, and what I'll tell you, Todd, is I'll repeat it again. Michigan's got a tight end who is as good as any of those 5-star wide receivers that you would want. Would you trade a Colston Loveland for any of these 5-star guys that you're talking about for next year? I wouldn't. I would take Loveland. So what you're talking about is Michigan has a premier pass catcher in Loveland. They've got one of the fastest and game-breaking players in all of college football with Roman Wilson. And people are like, well, Roman Wilson, is he going to get picked? What we're talking about is college football. And, there are other guys that are going to have some measurables, and you can talk about being first rounders or second rounders. But for Michigan, I don't really care if guys are going to get taken in the first or second round of the NFL draft. I care if they're going to be able to fit in to the program that Michigan has going, and if they're going to be able to have a positive effect on the field as Michigan tries to win a championship. Roman Wilson is as good as anybody in the country for what Michigan has, along with Loveland. So, yeah, and I know you immediately, and somebody else said it, Ibukwe and Marvin Harrison Jr. are first-team All-Americans. What are you going to do? Michigan does not have first-team All-Americans, but the Buckeyes, 2 years ago, they had the Rookie of the Year and Garrett Wilson. They also had Chris Olave, who had a tremendous rookie season last year. They had 2 great wide receivers. Those guys were both taken. Where were they taken? 10 and 11 in the draft? Tremendous players. Oh, you'd like Michigan to be able to pick up 5 stars at every position. And, if that's the spot that we're at, that's the spot that we're at. I don't mind. It's a little silly. But you have to, and if Michigan lands the wide receivers, then it'll be over to the defensive tackles. We need a defensive tackle, a 5-star. Let's see what Chuck is saying. How is the Detroit media? It was crazy for days when Michigan's backup entered the portal. Yeah, I don't know what this means. What is the Detroit media? So you're talking about people that work for the Free Press and News? When Michigan's backup entered the portal? I don't know. Who are we talking about? Michigan's backup. So, Chuck, you'd have to expand a little bit on what you're talking about. I don't know what that means. Todd says MSU had a big run under D'Antonio. We are beyond due. Yeah, D'Antonio is tough to say, but I'm going to say he was a great college football coach. They had a great run, but he fizzled at the end and was thinking more about himself than he was the football program. Saban couldn't win in East Lansing. Chuck's talking about Ishbia now. He's more worried about the Suns. He might not be throwing the same amount of money around. I hear what you're saying there. Tucker has 2 losing seasons and a bunch of bad looks. Hard to sell hope at a place like East Lansing. Would you rather hope there or hope in Miami? No, I understand what you're saying. Tucker has a few more years. Ringo's talking about the massive buyout. It's going to be a few more years regardless. Dave Brandon was in over his head. Yeah, there's nothing that's been more true than saying this about Dave Brandon. Yeah, and I'd like to go back. Okay, I will. Dave Brandon just thought a little bit. He just separated himself from what the mission was. He was thinking Dave Brandon instead of thinking about Michigan. He was thinking a little bit too much about Dave Brandon. Well, when Michigan basketball was, winning the Big Ten tournament, I don't need Dave Brandon up on the ladder, climbing up and cutting himself. You're not on the team, Dave. Get in the background. He always had situations like that, but that was it. And he's gone. That was good that they were able to move on. Let's see. We've got a few more on the feedback, and let's see if anybody. A lot about Mel. Todd, you need both. All right, I'm going to ask the question for tomorrow. I'm not going to ask it now, but I will go ahead and save this one. And here's the tease for you. I'll give it to you right at the end, okay? I saw an article that predicts first-round picks for Ohio State. Well, they've got great talent. Like I said, they've got the two best wide receivers in the country. They've got, along with, running backs now are taken in the first round. They've got two of the best running backs. I don't think they're better than Michigan's, but they're up there. They recruit nothing but 5 stars over on the defensive side. So, yeah, I think that could be easily that could happen. Here's Chuck. How is Detroit covering State's transfers? How is the Detroit media? I don't know, Chuck. I mean, they're saying, like, nobody is going to be saying anything positive about it. I mean, they lost 3 players that were going to be really important to their team next year. If you were looking for some kind of, Michigan State spin from somebody in Detroit, you could say, well, maybe Thorne felt like through spring practice, even though he looked like he was the starter, that they wanted to go elsewhere. So that's why he was taking off. So it's good, that they can go to one of their backups. I don't buy that. There's nothing that you can say about Coleman, and there's nothing you can say about the defensive players. So there's really, if you're looking for some kind of positive, I don't even think they're even the biggest green and white supporter of them all, whoever that would be. They couldn't say anything positive. They know sometimes you just got to take it. Here's the positive spin. If I wasn't honest and I was always looking through and just trying to, be a PR Michigan State guy, here's what I would say when it came down to it. Let me try. Welcome into the Green and White Show. Yeah, Thorne's gone, Coleman's gone, Brantley's gone. We'll see what kind of young players that Coach Tucker will be able to do. And hey, when's basketball season start? Let's get there. I can't wait for basketball season. It's going to be great. Tom Izzo is going to get his second ring, maybe. Look at this basketball season that's coming up. There you go, Chuck. There's your positive spin for you. Scott wants to know who he added from the portal. You added a kicker from Louisville who's from the state, who's excellent inside the 40. It doesn't look like he's got the long range leg, but he's got experience and he's pretty solid and has been through enough to come in and give you a solid option if you don't like what happens with coming in with some of the freshmen, the preferred walk-on, and of course the left-footed kicker Samaha, which reminds me of the Michigan State play-by-play guy Will Tiemann, who sometimes he's a funny guy, but the time that I remember is like, yeah, I look a little funny out there kicking. He's a left-handed kicker, something like that. Here's Mark. The media paid to make a mountain out of a molehill and molehills out of a mountain. That's somewhat true, Mark. The media, most of the media, they do things that think they will get you to either read or listen to them or watch them. That's what the media is trying to do. So if you are somebody who likes mountains being able to being made out of molehills, which the general population, that's what they like. They like TMZ type stuff. They like drama. So what does the media provide? What the fans want. That's what's going on. Let's not twist it around like the media sits over there like, oh, let's conjure up a bunch of silly stuff because the fans then, when we feed it to them, we have this power. No, that's what they want. You think your general population, like, we would like hard news on our team. They want entertainment, Mark. That's what's going on out there. I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about now. Jay says Warde Manuel isn't doing a whole lot better. Yeah, I don't agree with you, Jay. I think just like all of you are, concerned about Michigan's wide receivers, I'm not concerned. And I think Warde Manuel is doing a good job. So I don't know why you would say Warde Manuel is not doing a whole lot better than Dave Brandon. I mean, this is something that Michigan fans say. Now, if Warde Manuel wouldn't have been able to keep Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor, well, you could have criticized Warde Manuel. But you know what? How I look at the athletic director, like you want to talk about Olympic sports or whatever else, go ahead. He's doing a really good job there. Michigan's doing a really good job. I focus on two sports. I focused on football and I focus on basketball. And the football program really is 90% of it. And the football program is in a great position right now. So Warde Manuel, whatever you want to say about him, about saying he's not doing a whole lot better than Dave Brandon, completely false. He's doing a fabulous job right now. You say, I wish the baseball program, whatever. I wish he would have got off his horse a little quicker or got up on the horse a little quicker with hockey's doing good. Nobody thinks that Warde Manuel should have fired Juwan Howard. You can be upset with how the team played this year and how they didn't make the tournament. I was upset with how the team played this year and didn't make the tournament. Do you hear me calling for him to be fired? Only wackos are talking about that. So, Jay, you talking about Warde Manuel and being down on the athletic director is misplaced. But that's all right. There's a lot of people that will agree with you. Tucker is a press darling. I don't expect the press until Maryland beats them again. Yeah. Well, you know what happens, Mark, when you get into a place and you're new and then you have some success? I don't know if he was ever a press darling, but I think that there was Michigan State and football and their new coach, and it was a little bit of surprise the season they got him that contract that he was performing so well that, K9 came in and, was wonderful for him. But I don't think that I would agree with you that Tucker is a press darling. I don't agree with that at all. There's Marvin running through the guys that could be first rounders for Ohio State. I don't know. We're putting Travion Henderson in the first round. We're throwing running backs in the first round right now. Chuck says out of the area, so you guys are where I get my local takes. I think that's a smiley face. Yeah. Well, I don't know, like from 94 to 2006, I worked in Ann Arbor. And then from 2006 to 2020, I worked in Detroit to see how that media went down. And, there are people that are going to say things to try to get you to, whatever they feel like, and radio is going to get you the most calls and try to, entertain you. I can promise you this. Nobody in Detroit is talking about Mel Tucker today. Nobody. Unless it's a throwaway comment about losing 3 starters and how great of a season it's going to be. Nobody's talking about Mel Tucker and the Spartans draft. Reed got taken to the set. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about the Lions. The Detroit media talks about the Lions because that's what Detroit wants to hear. And they don't go as in depth. You can be a Michigan State grad and you can say some things about Mel Tucker, but isn't that a hope that is the ship sinking in East Lansing? It's taking on a bunch of water. Like, there's not a whole lot of depth more that is going to be said in Detroit about Michigan State. The football program's taking on a bunch of water, and they will be lucky to be bowl eligible this year. And so next season, maybe we got to this season, but this upcoming season looks like it's going to be a disaster and no bowl again. So State fans will just be groaning and waiting for the day and hoping that they can buy out Mel Tucker and look for their next head coach. But it's not, even as bad as it is right now, it feels like if that's what happens, and that's how I would see it, Chuck, they're going to have to take another step back before they take a step forward. And so the step back from 5-7, if they just won, I think 4 games next year, I don't know, is the promise of them turning things around and winning 7 ball games, is that going to save Mel Tucker? Probably not. And so you're going to have the next coach come in, and that transition, half the team will be in the transfer portal. It's a mess. That might be the best label to put on it. Chuck, the state program is a mess. It is the opposite of what's going on with Michigan. Michigan's doing real well. Even the biggest critics we'd like to bump up. We'd like, get a couple 5-star wideouts. Okay. What else? Nothing. That's it. All right. I'll take a few more on the feedback. Chuck likes Harrison. Yeah, Harrison is a great wide receiver. The punters. Dennis a la Comparoni. Yeah, well, remember, Comparoni is serving up Michigan State fans. They want the best green and white dish that they can get, so Cop's back there in the kitchen. He's working hard right now at that. Did Jim even sign his extension yet? No, Don. I mean, that's the thing that's hiding in plain sight. Michigan's doing great. They love having Harbaugh. Football program's doing fine. What about Harbaugh signing an extension? Not happening. Yeah, Harbaugh. And the only reason Harbaugh would not sign his extension is he doesn't want to sign where there's a big fat buyout at the end. So there's a chance that he could go to the NFL next year. I mean, there's a chance on that. I know that. You know that. We just don't say it every day. It's there. There's no other reason he wouldn't sign that contract. And Michigan's going to have what looks like a tremendous year. And if he does, Harbaugh will try, I think, for me, the 4th year in a row to go to the NFL. I know people don't believe after the pandemic that he was going to. I do. Obviously, he was with Minnesota 2 years ago. And this last year, he was interviewing, let's call it what it was, with Carolina when he was talking with the owner. They were just BSing on the phone. He was interviewing for the Carolina job, and he was interviewing for the Denver job. I don't buy that he was, his agent had him, so he could negotiate. This was a negotiation tactic. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. Unless, there's nothing wrong with having the, wool pulled over your eyes and just being, you don't want to believe anything. It's okay. There's people that are even, that I know you like and respect will tell you, no, this was a negotiation. No, it's not. He was interviewing for it, but hey, and he'll probably do it again next year. And, maybe somebody will take him. I hope not, but it's there. What else do you want me to say about it, Don? Everything's going great with Michigan. Having the coach, they've got last 2 years, they've been top 4 out of the football program. They're number 1 in recruiting right now. They look like they're going to be a top 4 team coming up next year. They've got one of the top 5 coaches in the game. And yeah, he could pull the plug next year. And, Sharon Moore will take over, and it could happen. I don't know what else I can say about that. I don't know. I don't feel like coming on every day and crying about it, but it could happen. Basketball, number 1 was Locked On Spartans intro to the Thorn transfer. All right, couple other on the feedback here. Jay says Ward lost Beeline and Bakich. WTF are you talking about? Well, hey, Jay, anytime you want to call up the show, send me an email or my DMs are open. I can set you up. You can come on here on a video. You can come on via a call, and you can discuss it with me. Beeline, it doesn't matter who was the athletic director. Beeline was tired of the landscape of college basketball, and he wanted to take a shot with the pros. That had nothing to do with Warde Manuel. It doesn't matter who the athletic director was. John Beeline was gone. And if you don't believe that, then I don't know what else. I don't know who you would listen to. Here's what I'll tell you, Jay. Anybody that tells you that Ward lost Beeline and he's to blame for John Beeline leaving is somebody you shouldn't listen to. And you should tell me their name, and I will tell you, and I will call that person out as a clown. Bakich, this is a tough thing for Michigan people to understand, so I'll go real slow with this. Michigan doesn't take a back seat to anybody, except in baseball. Because of his cold weather and, the SEC, they do take a back seat. It's kind of like they're not quite a Mid-American Conference where, when you have a MAC coach, they're leaving to move up. What I'm telling you is that a baseball program at Michigan, there's going to be steps up. And that's what happened with Bakich and why he left. So Warde Manuel could have offered Bakich $1 billion, could have offered him $20 million more. I don't know, whatever the money would have been. More than he was getting paid, and he would have left. So Warde Manuel does not get blamed for Bakich leaving. So the WTF should be right in front of your mirror, and you should look at yourself and wonder, why do I believe what I believe? Who am I listening to? And why would I even type that on the screen? Because it makes no sense to most people. Nobody believes that, Jay. So I don't know where you're getting your information from, who you listen to, who you subscribe to, but those people are clowns. Ward hired Juwan. Well, there's a good point. And that was, while looking great, right now. What can I say? Now that, I have to say, Todd, is a legitimate point. If you wanted to, if the game is, let's scrutinize Warde Manuel, well, this ain't a bad one coming in here right now. So there you go. Let's see if we got any more from Jay. Jay's coming in. And like the basketball team, that's, so Jay, that's legit. Right now things are not looking good with the basketball program. They got 2 open scholarships. They got to make the NCAA tournament this year. So I could see why you would say this. That's not the craziest thing. It's not nice, but we're not playing a nice game. This is legitimate from OT. Ward did not handle the Mel Pearson situation well. I agree with that. But in the end, he got a guy, and even though he's dragged his feet on both sides of that, the hockey program comes out of it looking fine. But, this is, I don't disagree with what OT is saying here. Yeah, blasting the basketball program is fair. It really is. Would Colorado take Tucker over Dion? I don't think so. No, Colorado has you want excitement. What you want is winning, but along the way, you would like a real excitement to be around your program. The Colorado football program has never had this much excitement around them, and that is because of Dion. Dion and Mel Tucker, they don't want anything to do with Mel Tucker right now. They got Coach Prime, so no. That's it. Yeah, Tucker has done great for himself, being able to cash in. He was in the perfect spot at the right time, and that happens. Throw in the white flag. All right, let's see if a couple more. I want to see if Jay is responding because I was kind of giving it to him a little bit. Comparoni's job is much harder than yours, given the material. Comp loves Michigan State. He's been compensated very well, and he's been running his same template for, because I can remember 30 years ago when I was going to Chicago, Jim Comparoni was there. I used to talk to him. I didn't know that. I didn't realize, what such the angles that he was running, because when you talk to him in person, he actually seems like, a perfectly, legitimate citizen and everything else. It's not till you start reading some of his stuff, you're like, whoa, this guy really believe what he's writing? And you're like, yeah, he does. He does. But he's serving it up. You got to serve up a certain angle if you're going to be able to keep that. So I don't know. People are backing me up. Let's see if we can get a little bit more. Yeah, Gary started an athletic director topic. Let's see if we have anything more from Jay. We have Punters, who's not afraid of being a little critical. Let's see what he's saying. You're being short-sighted not to care about the draft stock of Wilson or any other Michigan player. Even if he helps win a championship, high draft positions will attract better recruits. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think you're like, there's more than one way here. The most important, let's keep our eyes on the prize, Punter. What I'm talking about, and why don't I just go ahead and put this out there? I'm not going to read any comments. You can think about it for tomorrow. Can Michigan win a national championship with the receivers and tight ends that they have on their team? That is the question that I put out to you, and that is the direction that we're going tomorrow. Now, not saying that I don't care about the draft stock, is what I'm saying is my eye is on the prize. I care about Michigan winning the Big Ten, getting back to the college football playoff, and winning a championship. The other stuff, and like this weekend, it was important. The spotlight's on the maize and blue. Wow, look at these guys. Mozzie Smith going in the first round. Hey, Mr. Moody going in the third round. That's great. Kickers, Michigan, the way that what they're doing with the tight end position, the way they're recruiting with the offensive line, all of it is part of it. But for me, and who's to say that Roman Wilson couldn't work himself into being a first or second day pick? And you might say, well, I'm going on Pro Football Focus right now, or I'm looking at the early mock drafts. I don't know. These guys, they could do their mock drafts. They could talk to whoever they want. What I'm telling you is that Roman Wilson, who runs a sub 4.3, could go to the combine next year and run that sub 4.3 after he scores double-digit touchdowns, leads Michigan to a national championship, and people are going to say, hell, that guy's a first-round draft pick. So it could happen. So I said I don't care about it because it's not the only thing. It's like I think a lot of Michigan fans really care that Ohio State has great wide receivers. And I get it. They're Michigan's rival. You're always like, they've got 5 stars almost in every position. The way Michigan is recruiting right now, they're number 1. Ohio State's number 2. When's the last time Ohio State's, not been in the top 5 in recruiting? I don't remember. I don't think ever. They're always there. They always have great talent out on the field. So I'm going to rank it a little bit, punters, and saying that what I care about is how they're producing on the field. So I don't really care if Roman Wilson, I hope he's a first round pick, but I don't really care about that. I care about him producing on the field. And do I care if Colston Loveland is doing a Mark Andrews impersonation and leading the team in catches, in targets, in touchdowns? And people can say, well, what about Michigan's wide receivers? Well, what about Colston Loveland? That's my point. Maybe I should have. Sometimes I can hear myself screaming. I'm like, why am I screaming about that? I don't know. No more from Jay, I don't think. Jay was like, I'm out of here. Why am I getting yelled at? The D, Coach Prime has brought back a spark to Colorado. I'm not sure how long it's going to last. I'm not either. They don't even have enough to field a team right now. It's good point. A time for Michigan football is here and now. 2024 is going to be crazy. No better time to win it all than now. I'm following you. That's the way I feel right now, too. Uncertainty about the coach. Uncertainty about the quarterback. Come on, Jay. Jay gone. Where is Jay? Todd says it feels weird arguing about getting another Big Ten title, college football playoff, and maybe a natty. A great problem. They are very close. Keep focused, Blue. Yeah, Todd, I mean, we're just having fun, right? We're talking about, wouldn't mind. We're just talking about what we wouldn't mind. But it does kind of feel like maybe hitting the lottery and, being out on our yacht. And I look over and say, you know what? Can we get a little, can we get a better outboard, to getting over to the shore? Can we get a little better on the, I don't know, like we're sitting back. We're doing pretty good. Things are going pretty well. But it's the nature of the beast too, Todd. You're right. That does feel a little weird. But the thing is, most of our life, the off season has been about, oh my gosh, this thing, how would they ever be able to get to a spot where they were winning? They had the coach, they had the quarterback, they had the players, they had the recruiting, they had the transfer portal, where they got everything. How could we ever get anything? And you say, how could we ever be Alabama? How could you ever be Georgia? How could they ever be Ohio State? Here they are. So, yeah, a lot of those habits die hard. And really, if you want me sitting around just putting my feet up and every day coming in saying, hey, everything's great, it just feels like that right now. Here's something that we can argue about. We've had historical bad bowl seasons. But that's true. That's true. That's why they need to win the bowl game next year and win the national championship. That would be nice. That's facts, Todd. What about this criticism? People were all talking about how slowly things were progressing with the NIL. It seems like President Ono had to kickstart things, and now we are seeing the recruiting rolling finally. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like a year ago at this time, I was complaining about name, image, and likeness. I was complaining about the transfer portal. I don't have any complaints about the transfer portal right now. And what they did in the offseason with name, image, and likeness was better than any team in the country. Being able to bring the players that they brought back, fabulous. Then it was like, well, what about the future? Well, what about the future? Right. Well, they got Jaden Davis. He's a 5-star. That's pretty important. The 4 stars that they're pulling in, if they're able to keep them in, and the way things are going, it looks, and does it look great or does it look very good? I'm going to say it looks very good. I mean, they're this far away from me talking about NLI and everything from being great. And it was great this offseason to get the players on the field for this upcoming season. It was great with the NIL. I'm just saying to the future. And hey, if it's going to be that great, who's to say that they can't go out and, the thing about the 5-star wide receivers, this is a little tease for you tomorrow. Can Michigan win a national championship with the wide receivers and the tight ends that they have on this team? The spoiler for me is going to be yes. But because Michigan wants to line up and run the football so much, and, that's going to help with them getting running backs. It's going to help with them getting the offensive line. But is it true that you could be a quarterback and say, I don't want to just throw the ball 17 times a game. I want to throw it 40 times a game. There's some truth in that. And is there also, the next Marvin Harrison Jr.? To be like, do I want to go to Michigan where I'm going to have to block every down? Or do I want to go to, I don't know, Georgia, Alabama, I don't know, like Ohio State, where they're going to throw the ball 50 times a game? That's legit. That's legit. But remember this, stealing tomorrow's show. Michigan is going to be flexing their muscle in the passing game this year. That the passing game that they were trying to develop this year, this past year, they were developing it. It just wasn't hitting. And then it started hitting in the Ohio State game. I believe Michigan will be throwing the ball deep this year. They will be pushing the ball down the field. No, they're not throwing the ball 50 times a game, but they're going to take shots downfield, and they're going to be pushing. They're going to try to get and take the top off the defense with Wilson. They're going to be getting big chunk yards in the passing game with Colston Loveland down the field. That's part of the game. That's what they want to do. They want to use every part of the field. That can help in wide receiver recruiting. But no, do I see where the 5 stars might be like, I want to go somewhere where I don't have to block and they just throw the ball every down? I could see that. No, Jay? A criticism that would be much bigger toward Warde Manuel would be if Ono and Harbaugh hadn't circumvented Manuel on NIL. Well, the one thing I don't know, punters, and I know we have insiders ourselves, and you can rely on, I don't know, whoever you're relying on to tell you all this information on how it's going with the way it works with Harbaugh and Manuel and the president and everything else. I just know this, that, I had to read a couple reports about how that Harbaugh doesn't talk to Warde Manuel. These guys hate each other. They wouldn't want to be in the same room. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't even remember who was suggesting that. Oh, yeah, I do. Maybe it was John Bacon, I think. It was on the radio saying some things like this. He was like, and John Bacon's a friend of mine, but I don't know. John Bacon was like, these guys hate each other. I guess it sounded like that. I don't want to misquote him. He made it sound like these guys didn't like each other and they didn't have a good working relationship and they don't talk. And then it was like on Twitter, people were like, hey, here's Jim Harbaugh standing next to Warde Manuel. These guys have their arms around each other. These guys are laughing and cutting it up. They're just doing it for the cameras. I don't know. Maybe there's a point on that. My point is sometimes you have these insiders that are they need to be like Jim Comparoni. They've got to serve you up something. That's why I've grown to respect. I didn't know Josh Henske, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, but you know what Josh does not do? He's not just throwing a bunch of chum out there in the water for Michigan fans to be chomping around on. He gets this information, it's measured, puts it out there, and it's factual from what I've seen. What I've seen from some others. And hey, they're having success. They're lapping it up. They're having fun. They're sitting on their yachts, but they're like, you better get some chum out there in the water. Part of it is that Warde stuff. There's a lot of Warde chum out there for these Michigan fans to go after. Because Michigan fans have insatiable appetite for inside news. You just got to know everything. And so, you got to just throw some, you need to throw some curves and you need to throw some stuff down in the dirt. You need to get a little wild. You need to say things like rumors, inside scoop. Come on. Some of the stuff you need to deal with face value. All right. Today I thought this was going to be a 20-minute show. It's going to come on, say it's a Michigan Monday. What a great weekend. Celebration weekend. All those guys going up and getting drafted. Graduation weekend. Congratulations to everybody. It's a way to get May going, looking back at the weekend. Tomorrow, I want you to think about it. Can Michigan win a national championship with the receivers that they have on this team? Is that going to hurt them? That's what we're getting to tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Please subscribe. Leave comments on things like the podcast. Those are appreciated. It really helps make this show go. Thanks for the feedback as well. Everybody have a great day. See you later.